Good morning. Welcome. Hello. Welcome to Fasting Space. So nice to have you here. Do you ever compare yourself to others? It sounds almost funny to ask, right? Human beings are social creatures. Comparison, so much of the time, it's just baked into the cake. So let me ask it this way. How does it work out for you? When we're comparing ourselves to others, when you compare yourself to someone else's situation, does that tend to be a positive experience or not? I'll tell you, it can be a gamble, can't it? Sometimes it can be a gamble. You say, well, sometimes maybe I compare myself to someone and then I say, oh, I'm doing okay. Well, I have a quote to show you about that. Many times, though, don't we compare? We almost seek it out. We compare ourselves to people who we think, or we say, oh, this person is doing better. It creates this gap where we can end up really bringing a lot of negative energy, discouragement to ourselves. I described it in the description for our session today. Can be a thief of joy, thief of our joy, comparison. We can take a comparison and we can turn it into like a number, you know. It's like, oh, this person's doing like 20% better than me. Always a number that can make us feel bad about ourselves. Anywhere that we're at in the world, especially now in this electronic world that we're in, we have exposure to so many people having so many different experiences, can always find someone doing better. And people want to tell you because people want to be better. And this is social media culture. Everybody putting their best foot forward, but it might not even be a real foot. It might be an AI-generated, assisted foot forward, you know? Like, how many times in the past you might see a video, you say, well, at least you say this is a real human being that I'm comparing myself to. Now you don't even really know. You know, so think how much distress we can bring to ourselves by comparing ourselves to so many things, including things that aren't even real. Crazy. So we want to protect our space. I say we want to be walking our path. We walk our path, not theirs. Definitely enough to walk our path. Our path is unique. Our path is the only one we can walk, and if we are trying to walk on that path as thoughtfully as possible, finding joy on the journey, minimizing struggle, okay, a path towards struggle, comparison is a huge thing that can pull us off of our path. Tell us, you know what, your path isn't good enough. Look at this person. They've got it figured out. As I was reading some different things yesterday, planning for thinking about comparison, someone was saying, we take someone's highlight reel and compare it to our behind-the-scenes footage. And then oh man, that really resonated with me. So comparison can be a gamble. We say, let's head back to our reflection. This image that I brought from the other day where I was sitting by this water, looking at the reflection of the trees and the sky and the water. Get us in a good space to reflect again on comparison. 2 quotes that I want to share with you today. Comparison, more than reality, makes people happy or wretched. That's Thomas Fuller, who I don't know who that is. But Thomas Fuller says this. So this is kind of bringing into that mindset I was saying, like it's a gamble. Say, maybe does comparison pay off sometimes? We'll think more about that. But can it leave you wretched? I know sometimes I have gotten into that space where it's like the times I feel worse, maybe you say, "Oh, I was like doing okay. I'm like on a path here. Things going okay." And then you encounter someone else who is just like crushing it, then all of a sudden I've felt that. Now I'm feeling bad about myself where I wasn't before. Wretched, that's a that's a powerful word, right? How many times in our life do we experience that because we feel like we don't measure up, we're not good enough? Comparison can blind us actually to the reality. We're talking about how so many times in today's situation, we might be comparing ourselves to things that aren't even real. Our path, though, this is what we want to center on. This is something that is real, and we can be having real progress, actual real progress. A health goal can be anywhere in life, right? Any sort of thing. We compare ourselves across every domain. What kind of possessions we have, what our living situation is, what our relationships are across every domain. And I'll tell you, every domain of comparison is something to think about. And it's all the same ultimately, because what we're trying to do in a health space, we're moving toward a health goal. Maybe it's a weight loss goal, maybe it's some other type of health process. We're trying to get ourselves into the mindset where we can build for ourselves, create for ourselves the healthiest experience that we can. And I do love this idea. Building it, constructing it means a project, something we can work on, build over time. Rome isn't built in a day. Great health is a lifetime sort of process. So we're walking on that path. That path, we said it here. Imagine there's a path that is heading here across our beautiful lake. We're trying to get to that distant shore. That's our journey that we're heading toward. If we want to stay on the path, it's got to be a good experience. We want to create a good experience for ourselves. The joy isn't in just getting to our campsite on the distant shore. The joy is the process of getting there. If we aren't experiencing joy, this is why finding joy on the journey is so important. The journey, people would say, is the destination. The journey to get to the place is the real experience. The process of overcoming obstacles and moving through barriers, overcoming them, that's what builds deep satisfaction and deep understanding. So that the process that we go through to get where we're going is what builds the foundation so that we can stay there. So many times, we've described a weight loss experience that people go through. Have you experienced? It's like this, right? Up and downs. Okay, that's a process. Think how much effort, went into this part, and then think of the discouragement that happens, and then the effort and the things. And we want to pull ourselves back from an experience like that. This is why I talk about finding peace and contentment and joy on a journey, because as we're moving through a space like this, we want things to be sustainable and enjoyable so that when we get where we're going, we feel comfortable when we get there. I've talked to people who've gone on extreme dietary processes, had actually huge amounts of success, but right at that point, people so burned out, they're like, hey, I cannot maintain this. This is not a place of contentment that is sustainable. So this is why the mindset is the most important thing. Our dietary processes in our society, we're so dialed in, okay, what are the calories? What are the practices? What are the things? That's why I'm presenting to you a fasting process, which is a very powerful tool. One tool amongst our whole canvas, our whole palette of different practices, the healthy food, the movement, all these sorts of things. Fasting is very powerful to dial in on. That's why we approach it in the most thoughtful and gentle way, so that you can dial just the amount of it in that helps you to feel good and excited and encouraged. Comparing ourselves to someone else who is not doing that. You say, I see this influencer. I see that they're having this incredible experience. We don't know what their life is like. We don't know what their mental, emotional experience is. We don't know what their life is going to be like 6 months from now if it falls apart, you know? So we've got our behind the scenes footage. We know our experience. We don't know other people's experience. Check out this quote, a little bigger one. This is getting into that spot. We say, well, comparison could make us feel better or wretched. It's a gamble. But then think about this one. Sonia. I missed the A. Not Sony. The thing about comparison is that there is never a win. So is it really a gamble, or is it a guaranteed loss? There's never a win, according to Sonia. How often do we compare ourselves with someone less fortunate than us and then consider ourselves blessed? Okay, so that one can hurt a little bit, right? We think, you say, well, shouldn't we be able to feel good about ourselves? And isn't there a mindset where we say, well, hey, I'm doing better than this person, and then we can feel good about ourselves. That is not really, as we start to pull apart the emotions of it, can you see that's not really a healthy or thoughtful perspective? I know I do that. I definitely do that. But isn't that building up our ego? Isn't this telling us, oh, how great we are at the expense of someone else? If our good feelings and good vibes are coming because we are thinking of ourselves as superior to other people, well, that's not a mindset. So, like, comparison can't really help us there, actually. Like, this is why we have to be in our path. We need to be finding joy and positivity from our path, not at the expense of someone else. So even this other side of it, where we might say comparison helps us win, but is it really? And then more often, they say we compare ourselves with someone that we perceive as being, having, or doing more, and this just leaves us coming up short. So I thought that the first quote kind of showing us like, oh, is it kind of a gamble? And then the second one showing that even when we gamble on comparison and it comes up good, it isn't even really taking us to a better space. So this is the big message, focusing on our own path and not on someone else's path. This is what is going to help us keep us in this reflection space where we're centered and grounded on our path, the things that we can actually control. And then because then we know it's completely real. Then we are centered in a space. We know our destination. We can see where we're going. And we can dial in. And then when we are having progress, when we are experiencing joy, peace, and contentment, we can actually find encouragement in those things, not be distracted and pulled away by someone else's experience who has a completely different reality than we are experiencing. I started thinking about comparison. So yesterday afternoon, I was reading through this beautiful book for you, Thinking Fast and Slow, trying to take every good thing I can squeeze out of it and bring it to you as psychological understanding about why do we make the decisions we do and think the things we think. I went through a big chunk yesterday where it really went into a lot of financial stuff. Why do we make financial decisions that we do? And especially it went into like some gambling sort of things. Like they study people who are making bets and risk taking. I didn't think all of that was really too applicable. But there was one scenario that I just thought was interesting to comment on. They're talking about two people at a casino. One person who is very wealthy, one person who is not. A wealthy individual is betting $5,000 a hand on a blackjack. And for them, this $5,000 doesn't mean very much. This other person, and not very wealthy, betting like $10 a hand. Okay, but for the wealthy person, is $5,000 is like $10. It doesn't mean that much to them. For someone of more average means, $10 it wasn't such a big deal for them. The experience that each of them have when they win and lose is the same. Someone is winning the blackjack hand, they win 20 grand, is not a big deal to a very wealthy person. Hard to understand, okay? Someone playing the $10 hand, they win $200. Okay, they're each pretty happy, with this outcome. So when we think about comparing between people, I thought that illustration just showed, because comparison is across every domain. Think about one person's experience, about something that is causing joy. Someone in a totally different experience can, even with a much more meager experience, having the exact same cognitive experience. And so then we experience someone is, experiencing something, and we say, oh, my life is nowhere near anything like that. Like, this is why we got to stay into our space, because we realize people having completely different experiences, and we can get pulled totally off base with this. Pat is here. Good morning. So nice to have you here. Here's another. I thought I'd read just a little section on this. When we think about comparison, there is one comparison that we do want to make, and I'm going to get us to that space. In this section, they're talking to us about Jack and Jill. Okay, and Jack and Jill each have a wealth of $5 million. So can you imagine, okay? And so just knowing that, we can start, thinking. You're starting some comparison, with yourself. Like, presumably, most people do not have a wealth of $5 million. And so, I sit here and I think this, like, originally thinking these people must be happy. Well, they must be happy. We're already running the comparison thing. And then doesn't a sub-process run in your mind? Well, wouldn't I be happy? Wouldn't I like to be both Jack and Jill in this scenario? They got $5 million. I would be so happy. Now listen to what he does. Now the story continues. But yesterday, all right, Jack had $1 million and Jill had 9. Oh, ouch. So now you realize, and then the question, are they equally happy? And today they each have $5 million. Shouldn't they be equally happy? They're comparing to each other. They're just the same. Okay, but Jack just made $4 million and Jill lost $4 million. Obviously, like you can tell, Jill is miserable and Jack is elated. So now we're seeing between people how complex it is, people's experience. This is just, with a simple illustration, showing how it doesn't work to compare. And comparison, even when you can see exactly what the comparison is like relative comparison that is controlling people's happiness. It's like the relative experience people having in a blackjack hand. Someone who's very wealthy betting 5,000 and someone who is not betting 10. They can have the exact same experience. But if you don't know everything about these people, like, we're just telling a story, we're making it up. So, like, you don't know people's situation that frames the experience. This is what we're talking. All these framing effects that we've been talking about in the rest of this book completely shapes the context, which shapes people's experience and then happiness. And a lot of times our lack of happiness. And so you say, I want to get out of that game. Say, this is a game I don't want to play. I don't want to be sitting and taking my emotional space and putting it in a casino and gambling on it. Like, this is not a thoughtful thing to do, but it's giving us an illustration of what we do when we go into the casino of comparison. We're just rolling the dice, and as we saw from the quote, it usually doesn't turn out too well. They say in what is the thing? The house always wins in gambling, right? So you're going to go into the comparison casino, like, the house is going to win most of the time. Not a good gamble. They say traditional theories about what makes people more or less happy. Say Jack and Jill have the same wealth. People would say they should be equally happy, but you don't need a degree in psychology to know that today Jack is elated and Jill is despondent. Indeed, we know that Jack would be a great deal happier than Jill even if he only had $2 million today, while she had 5, okay, because they're experiencing loss. One person's experiencing gain. They're experiencing happiness. One person is experiencing loss. The happiness that Jack and Jill experience is determined by the recent change in their finances relative to different states of wealth that define their reference points. I thought this was very interesting. We develop reference points across every domain of our life, like what our experience is compared to someone else. The reference is ubiquitous across all of our sensations and perceptions. The same sound will be experienced as very loud or very quiet, depending on whether it was preceded by a whisper or a roar. To predict the subjective experience of loudness, it's not enough to know its absolute energy. You need to know the reference sound. Similarly, you need to know about the background before you can predict whether a gray patch on a page will appear as dark or light. And you need to know the reference before you can predict the utility of someone's finances. So this is starting to bring into a concept that I think is the comparison that we should only be making, which is our experience today compared to our experience yesterday. Our experience now compared to our past. Because we are walking a path. We are trying to head forward through a space and get to a destination that is important to us. We aren't trying to walk someone else's path. We do not have their context or reference, which we can't see. We can only see our situation and path. And if this is how the comparison starts pulling off course, I put in the description the parasite of our progress that is pulling us in a direction that we don't really want to be going. We stay on our path, we know our references. Then we can say, am I moving forward on my path? Am I working through the struggles and challenges that I am experiencing in a healthy and positive way? Am I learning and growing and developing and dealing with these unique things? Doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Making that comparison to someone else can only take us in a different direction. That's the comparison that we need to make. And harder to do because we're looking outside. We're always looking to something else. And so many things vying for our attention. As soon as we get it, right, then we start comparing. This is why I encourage everybody, take the time for that inward reflection. Start the journal. Dive into the journal. Open up some open meditation space. That's how you bring that reflection inward. Start comparing self to self. Do some reflection in that space. Like how are you doing with that? This is how fasting, we were saying the other day, get us into that space of openness. Open space in our life feeds through across many different domains. We create open physical space in the body. That's the weight loss space. We talked about using that to let go of physically the weight that isn't serving us. Feeding into the emotional space. We talked yesterday about forgiveness, about letting go of the emotional baggage from trauma and darkness that has come to us. Finding lightness through that process. That's the comparison we can make with ourselves today. Am I emotionally lighter today than yesterday because I forgave? Okay, incredibly powerful space. Am I physically lighter today because I opened up a fasting space? I gave my body the opportunity to open up this space and it used that energy. Okay, and we're moving forward in a progress, in a space. It's like super contained. Emotionally. is not dependent on someone else's experience. It's not living up to anyone else's expectations other than our own. This is how we start living in alignment with our path and not someone else's. Yeah, so maybe a practice for today, for going forward, just to recognize, okay, comparison is natural. It's hardwired into the system. We're gonna do it, like it's gonna happen. But building our process of awareness, this is what I would say, to start to be more aware of it and to realize, so many times we do it, it's subconscious. That's that fast thinking system, like we've been saying. These comparisons are just brought up to us by the associative machinery. It just happens. Bringing the awareness would be to start to realize, where is comparison having an impact on my life? Where is this influencing my thinking? Siphoning off the energy that I'm trying to put into my path is diverting it into these processes of other people that I don't know or understand or couldn't possibly realize the context of their life and experience. Okay. As we're building our awareness of the places where comparison is operating in our life, we can work over time to turn those pathways down. Like, it'd be very hard for us to ever, not compare ourselves to anything. But as we build awareness, we turn down the dials on those pathways, channel all that energy into our path. We're working, getting 1% better every day, a little step forward. Have you seen those graphs? I should find one. 1% better every day. You don't just get 360% better, because it compounds. And so over the course of a year, say 1% better every day, it just blows out in this logarithmic scale. So little things like this, let's divert the energy of comparison just to myself today to myself last week. And then we will see that's bringing us forward, definitely better, without the joy being siphoned off by anybody else. Keep us focused and grounded. This is what I want. A fasting practice to me is a grounding practice. It's stripping out every unnecessary thing, completely opening up space, leaning into the body. Helps us to realize body is very strong. Body has huge resources, and we train ourselves to tap into it and use it. Helps us build trust and confidence in the body. That is a real tangible process. That looks like taking steps down a path every day. It's not any kind of magic, cure-all. I didn't call it easy fasting. I call it simple because it is very direct. There's not much to it. You can outline the whole thing in only a few sentences. You were going to be eating breakfast and now you're not. And you're going to practice staying hydrated and remaining content in that space only to the extent that it works. I can flow that out in one phrase. You say very, very simple. But then to do it, you say, then you could add a second sentence. And if you need more power in order to lose weight, you can increase the intensity by eliminating the next meal and practicing opening up that space. So in a few phrases, we can describe the arc of what fasting is, but then we can talk for hours, day after day, about the implications of it, because it's a very profound and deep space in the body. Is getting to the core of this metabolism. We talked about breaking a practice like that up into tiny steps if you struggle to do it. One person doesn't struggle because we don't know their reference, okay? And someone else struggles greatly, says, this is the most difficult thing that I did. But they still overcame it. And so within that whole spectrum of human experience, this is why we all are on our own path. We can't compare ourselves to other people who are trying to walk this path. It's a very personal experience to go through. Our relationship with food and what that is doing for us, both physically and emotionally, like at the core of our emotional experience. So I'm especially interested, someone who says, I start a thing like that, it's not difficult at all to me, and they accomplish everything you ever want. Well, bless that person. You don't really need very much help, you know? So we want to focus on this end of the spectrum, especially people who really saying, I could use a hand. I want to give you a hand to do that. Because I've worked with people who found it completely impossible to do, say, but then we move toward it. When we compare ourselves in that sort of space, you say, oh, I'm really struggling. How come this person doesn't struggle? Okay, then it is like, is not going to help anything. That's the thief of joy. That's the parasite on the progress. Comparing ourself to ourself yesterday, realizing, hey, I'm actually moving forward. This is the path of how we move forward. You can be making real meaningful progress, but if you're looking to someone else's path, you won't even be able to see it. Getting the comparison out help us really focus in on what is actually happening here in my life right now that I am experiencing and I can control and I can shape and push forward. That progress might be small at the start, and that's okay. But when we eliminate these distractions, all our energy is not going into any kind of comparison except for ourselves. Then we can start to see it. That's like dialing in the focus on this process. That's that 1% better every day. You start to get in a path like that where you can see, okay, I am gaining experience. I am gaining skill. I am practicing this commitment. I'm committed to myself, my body, my path. Here are the things I can do. We've got a small checklist of things that we can do. Moving our bodies in healthy ways, eating the healthiest food and keeping the toxic things out, opening up a fasting space to the extent that it is bringing joy and openness and health to my body, practicing all of the supportive mental health practices that are helping me to do that, the journal, the meditation, the walks, the connection with nature and community and friends and family, all these sort of things, getting good sleep, all these beautiful things that support total health and flourishing. These are the things to dial in on. I mean, how many things did I just rattle off? Like 12 different things. Plenty of things to focus there on our own path without someone else getting in the way of it. Yeah, thinking about the reflection I was having from yesterday, finding a path of peace and contentment. This is the big thing. This is where I want fasting to go. I think the average person in our society see fasting, oh, that's something very intense, something to struggle through, something I wouldn't want to experience. Then as you go through it, you pass through it, you realize, oh, this is part of a broader experience of finding contentment in life. And contentment, something, man, doesn't everybody want that? And culture, what I describe as consumption culture, they try to sell contentment to us. That you have to buy contentment. My perspective is contentment exists inside, and we have to create the environment for ourselves in which we can experience it. You don't have to buy it. The process of trying to buy contentment, generally unsatisfying. Most of the time is like, okay, you buy something, you get a temporary feeling from it. So, oh, now I feel satisfied. I have this thing. How long does that last? That cycle, trying to buy contentment, is really driven by comparison. You think about what a commercial is, basically. You think what an advertisement is. It's trying to create and show a gap between what you have now and what you could have. And if you bought this thing or experience, wouldn't you be then content? And that is what gets us on a cycle where we're chasing contentment always by comparing ourselves to some other state where we have more. think to me, fasting is like the antidote, the template that shows the other way. Actually, by opening up space, we can find contentment already exists inside of us. We can be content with nothing. This is what breaks the consumption cycle across, every domain where we need to consume. Help bring things into balance. It's like the counterbalance. Don't have to compare to other people to find something better. Better exists right here. What we have is enough. There's a word that is not present, in our popular societal vocabulary very much. Enough. Fasting start to show us like we can have enough, at least in a space, like with nothing. When we think about framing effects, advertisements, all these things showing us you don't have enough, you need to purchase, you need to consume. Now we are playing that comparison. See, comparison's so powerful. This is what so much advertising trying to do, is to play off that. They know people will compare. Like, oh, look at all the happy people on the TV. Look at the people in the ad. They are so happy. We want that happiness. Trying to sell it to us. Like when we have dialed up our awareness, then we can start to see, like, oh, am I not satisfied? Am I not content? Do I not have enough already? We start to build that mindset, try to insulate ourselves from that effect. Realize that's our default position is going to be just comparison. But then we try to say, no, actually, I'm good. Actually, I'm good. So I wrote, like yesterday, I tried to write a few questions to reflect on, drive us forward. Got a couple questions about comparison to reflect on. If you're able to open up some space today, say, I want to reflect on comparisons. Say, just think of someone in your life that you compare yourself to. Can you think of someone? Maybe it's someone you don't know. It's someone you follow on some social media. Maybe it's someone in your life. This is someone I'm comparing myself to. And reflect on that. Why is that? It's coming to me now as I'm talking about it, okay? It's okay to admire experiences that people are having. And maybe you can turn this into something, like to see someone else's experience. And say, I like how this person is doing this thing. I like how someone is doing that. This I'm thinking live with you is not, part of my thinking yesterday. Say, oh, we should never compare ourselves to someone. Isn't there a space where to value someone's experience and to be inspired by someone can be positive, and to the extent that you can see someone's experience not as a comparison in the sense of judging ourselves. I think this perhaps is where comparison really goes awry, is like envy, right? When we are jealous of someone's experience and we judge ourselves for not feeling good enough. If there's a positive experience for comparison, maybe that's not even comparison. Maybe that's just looking to others for inspiration without comparing their experience to ours. Maybe that's the distinction as I'm trying to think through it. Very good. Look to someone else for experience, inspiration, to see, oh, here is someone who has walked a path that I am trying to walk. Of course, anytime we don't have to reinvent the wheel, you say, hey, here is someone who's walking on a path. Good to have inspiration. I would say that from people. Inspiration without comparison, to realize this person who is having this experience that I am looking to for inspiration, living a different life and is actually on a different path with a different experience. can't take inspiration and turn it into anything that is judgment. That would be trying to put ourselves on someone else's path instead of walking our own. What do you think of that? Does that make sense as I'm thinking through it? I think it's sounding all right to me. Be happy to hear your perspective. Feel free, if you're coming through on the comments, to later, if you're on the replay or if you're with me now, do share your reflections, including later on in the week. Things like this, I know for me personally, I get into a space, I start reflecting, we're going to take off from here, we're going to be going about our day, we'll be doing our things. But then, some of these thoughts, I know for me, it's going to be running around in my mind. About, here's where I compare, here's where I say, I'm not good enough. I'll be having some thoughts running through for the day. How do I dial in on my path and not be pulled away from these things? So if you have reflections, come back to this space. It's going to be an archive, this sort of space on comparison, just going to be here. Come back, share reflections that you've had as we go along would be great. My thoughts of the day on comparison. Like I did yesterday, I leave things open. I don't have to run. I leave a little open space here. If you've got other topics, other questions or reflections, I'm going to have some coffee for a bit, do a little reflecting. Be happy to hear any other things you have, and then we will all carry on in our day from here. I hope if you're going to be setting sail wherever you are heading, that this space is helpful to frame that perspective. I'll move forward in the most positive but grounded, centered space that we can. This is the opportunity. I've even lost count. We've been counting how many days till 2026. We are dialing down on our countdown. Stepping toward it. I know I've been dialing up my holiday preparations. And so now we're going to really get into it. We've talked a lot for multiple months. Win the holidays. Now it is coming. Now it is going to be upon us. How are you feeling about it? Are you getting dialed in? Do you have a plan? Is everything in a good space? Or do you need to do some catch-up work? I'd be happy to hear. Pat says, work keeps us competing. Yeah, competition space is really brings us into a comparison sort of zone, doesn't it? In so many different ways. Especially in certain places, if our financial situation is dependent on beating out some coworkers on something, or trying to play the hustle game and get the promotion and all these sort of things. A lot of comparison there, a lot of comparing our state to what we think our future should be. We measure our success in so many different ways depending on whether we're competing or beating other people, and that sort of mindset. Say, well, does it have its place somewhere? Maybe it has, there's pros and cons to everything. But yeah, competing with people, only if it's fun, I say. Down 11 pounds since the start of the weekly series. Next week will be the test. Hey, thank you for sharing. Real happy that you have had this progress. That is like incredible, real progress. I'm so happy to hear it. Stay focused on that success. See the blueprints and the patterns that you're having. And then I agree, this week, okay, it's a test. Holiday, you say, is holiday is a test. Let's like really dial in and think about it. Is it a test or isn't it? Let's think about it from a certain perspective. We say it could be, and for a certain perspective, we don't want to bring pressure on ourselves. We don't want to take something that is like the most joyful, positive time of the year and turn it into something intense, or to create an environment where we can feel guilty about it or pressure or anything. We want to have a beautiful thing. Has this been the test? Okay, this is what's coming to me now. Has this phase been the test? And you passed the test. You got A+, right? And this next season is like the party after the test, actually, you know. The test is like, is there a path? Is there a process in your life, in your body, where you can walk forward through a space, find joy, peace, and contentment, and have success, and move toward a goal, and actually be accomplishing it, and stick toward it? And here, how long have we been doing this? Weeks and weeks. And you're doing it. And so to me, I say that's like passing the test. Like give yourself three cheers. You pass the test. Nothing else to prove. Does this make cheers go? Many cheers coming. I saw a thing that could make them come on the screen. I have to give it so I can give people more cheers. Yeah, eating off the plan for 3 days. Hey, like 3 days out of 365. It's like we got a couple holiday seasons. It's a couple days out of a process. Does it help you take the pressure off? So eating off the plan, the fasting space doesn't have to be into it. You can bring a fasting space into part of it. You say, I'm going to dial in on a couple meals. You say, this one's going to be coffee, and these one's going to be, I'm not going to think about it, like as a way to do it. Or you say, these 3 days completely the fasting, not a part of this, because I'm dialing in with my family. I'm having these experiences. The days beforehand and the days after, like you're saying, the before and after plan. Lean into it ahead of time. I'm gonna intentionally use this fasting dial ahead of time. Push that edge, because we say it's, we don't ever push ourselves into a space where we say, well, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like this is too much. But in this sort of space, you say, hey, I want to bring balance to my experience. This can create excitement, because like, would it be exciting? In my vision, I love that quote, preservation is progress. I'd love if we're having it after the holidays to say, hey, everything is just neutral. I maintain, I didn't, bounce. I didn't have anything, like we didn't move forward, but like maintain. That's what I tell people is a really nice goal during a holiday season, just to maintain, get through this space without, I enjoyed every good thing. I didn't feel limited or restricted in any fashion. I had meaningful, joyful experience, and I came through and like we're at the same spot. Or even like I gained just a little bit, it's like no big deal. And then we just carry on, because like we say, you already passed the test. You already know we can get right back on a track. Holiday's over. Now we just get back in the groove. And so almost anything that happens over the course of 2-3 days, like when you've walked the blueprint for weeks and months and you know where it is, like almost anything that happens over a couple days, not going to be a big deal. But I would say that now from that perspective, okay, on the front end, this might be the type of thing that can dial you into a mindset that say, actually, I'm open to it. Like in the past, I've felt like I can't push this like so harder, because we say the line is you don't want to push something harder to the point of feeling overwhelmed. The other side of that line is people do difficult things, and people stretch themselves and move into a space and move through difficulty, especially when you have a clear vision of what it means. And so when you have that, you say, I'm actually going to open up some more of this fasting space, or pick any part of your path. I'm going to have ultra clean eating ahead of this space. I'm going to like extra move into like just gentle movement, going to burn up more of this space, add in some more activity. You do all these things if you want. Say, I'm going to really open up some fasting space and do more walking and doing all these things ahead of time. Say, I'm going to really get better, totally prime my experience here to maximize things on the front end, give myself a better buffer to come through this on the other side. And then you say you use that same sort of practice afterward. Many people's experience actually is like after Thanksgiving, you say, it's like the next day you're not so hungry, right? You say, I ate a lot. You say, that's like a space where in the traditional sort of world where people don't have an idea, a concept of fasting, people feel like, oh, I'm not hungry, but people feel compelled, I have to keep eating. Or it's like, where actually is like on the back end of something like that, you're feeling more full. If you have a feeling in your body, you say, I'm not too hungry here, that's actually a much easier space to fast. And if you have a big food day one day, what is the path of least resistance? Like just open up the possibility that the fasting might be easier after that. And to say, if you have a big food day one day and then open up a big fasting day the next day, family's gone home, now we're back to a boring environment. Say it's just me and I'm back to work and I'm doing this stuff. Maybe you can just flow through that space much more easily and then is not a struggle. So this is what we're back to. We're trying to flow through all these spaces with as little struggle as possible. Someone might feel inspired to really hit it on the front end because that sounds exciting and they're like, I'm going to really head into this with a big buffer. Someone else says, I don't like that. I'm going to flow through this space and then just be open to, a bigger space on the back end. If you have an experience like this was the eating over the holiday and then you hit it with a bigger fasting space. By the time a week goes by, then it balances out. And you can dial in both of those things, and that's part of the experience over time is learning, okay, what is my path? How do I navigate this? Because, of course, we got one holiday and then another. So here's like a practice run. You've got this path that we've been on over the last weeks and months. It's gone great. So there's a path you get back on. Keep walking toward the goal. We say sometimes the path goes this way. Remember the one that I showed. Can I bring it up? I think I should leave all my images up so I can just go through them so easily. Wouldn't that be nice? I want to bring up that one of Horseshoe Bend in Arizona where I was showing, where it's like that river is bending in this crazy way. But I don't know where I put it. But like that river is flowing through, and it goes all the way around here, and then just to get back almost to where it started, and then goes on. That might be our holiday week, right? We're flowing along, and then a little detour flowing through, and then back where we started, and then the river just keeps right on flowing. So maybe think of it that way. Maybe this is the trial run over Thanksgiving to have that, and then you got like a Christmas or something else like that going to be happening. There's another opportunity to practice this experience. The whole thing is a practice. Take the pressure off. Call it a practice and not a test. Like to me, test is very intense. It's an opportunity to practice an experience and learn and grow. The big question is like, hey, how in my life do I have an experience where I thread the needle, balance this equation, have an experience of joy, happiness, meaning, contentment, peace, all these things, and, flow through so that everything balances out over the course of a week or so. And that's not a big deal. You step on the scale and say, I weigh 3 pounds more on Friday than I did on Thursday. Okay, these things balance out, right? There's a lot of stuff to work through the system, so 3 pounds isn't always like 3 pounds if you see what I'm saying. And just realize this stuff is going to balance out, going to use these practices, and then we just learn from it. We just learn from these things. Say, here's another data point. Maybe you see coming in, I mean, I would guess, like right now, to flow through this space down 11 pounds is like a lot more dialed in than other years, you know? It's like this is already. Don't even have, like I was saying, oh, you could dial it up further. You're already way dialed in compared to like other times. So just recognize like, hey, I am in a good place. We are flowing with some good vibes. And we're just going to flow through that. Okay, I love those thoughts. Thank you for that. I say thank you. Be very helpful to me to just think about all these wonderful things that you bring up. So I do appreciate that. Hope you all have a great day practicing all these good thoughts, peace and contentment. We flow through this space. I see you back here tomorrow for more thoughts. Be well, everybody. Have a great day.